Hey everyone, Call of Duty Zombies has been around for literally 17 years now, which is absolutely insane for me to even say personally, considering this game has been around for almost every single year I have lived. With time, however, things begin to change, and it is no surprise that Call of Duty as a whole has changed to such a drastic extent over the years to a point where we have gotten now where it honestly may be completely unrecognizable to some people. I think personally, if you were to take a kid playing Black Ops 1 and were to immediately then introduce him to Black Ops 7, he would be absolutely blown away because truthfully, this series has evolved so much over the years. That does not mean all the evolution is positive, however, and I am personally here to argue why I am tired of the modern zombies formula and everything it provides, and to discuss what makes these aspects of the game frustrating for me personally. So, with all that being said, let's dive into the curse of consistency. Alright, so before I say absolutely anything, I want to make things abundantly clear. I am absolutely loving Black Ops 7 and all of the content it has to offer so far. This is easily the most packed game we have had in a very long time, and the amount of things developers are listening to and implementing is amazing. This video is by no means meant to criticize the opinions of others who may disagree with my sentiment. In fact, I personally enjoy the modern systems to a certain extent, and if you are an avid fan of modern zombies and all the systems it has to offer, I am absolutely supporting you. But with that out of the way, let's define what modern zombies means as a whole, because this is a term that has been thrown around consistently across the zombie scene ever since Cold War Zombies approximately 5 years ago at this point. Within the modern zombies experience, the player finds themselves starting with a weapon of their choice, whether it be an assault rifle, an SMG, or simply just a knife if you are talking Cold War standards. It is completely chosen by the player and customized to their liking with attachments and camos at the start of any game. Additionally, there is a system that had been implemented from numerous battle royales before it, rarities, which defines the damage the weapon does by assigning it a color, with of course gray or red in Cold War's case being the lowest, followed by green, blue, purple, and gold respectively. To accompany this new feature, a new currency is established, salvage. This salvage allows you to build up pieces of scrap you find off of deceased zombies that will accumulate to a point where you can upgrade your rarity. However, salvage isn't just linked to rarity, as within these modern zombies experiences, you will find a crafting table, and no, not like the crafting tables of the past, but rather a table strictly built to craft lethals, tacticals, and more importantly, kill streaks that have become extremely popular in the multiplayer. Another thing present within these experiences is the field upgrade, a small boost to the player's overall power that can take the form of a get out of jail free card or just a simple defense mechanism to hold out an area for longer. Additionally, ammo boxes are created to ensure the player never runs out of ammo within their weapons for the first time in zombies history. And the final and probably most infamous of these is the way the points work in this game. As compared to previous titles where points would be accumulated through each bullet, in these games you can only achieve the points once the zombie has actually been killed, to where it is a set amount of points depending on where you hit the zombie. So now that we have defined what a basic modern zombies experience means, and so that there is absolutely no confusion, why do I have such a problem with this mode specifically? Well, the first major point I wanted to look at was my last point just mentioned in that list I had just made, which is the point system. But before I talk about any of that, I want you to all keep one word in mind throughout this entire video: consistency. The point system in the newer Call of Duty allows the player to achieve the maximum amount of points through the use of headshots, a pretty standard way to reward extra points for those who can actually aim their weapon effectively, and in some games, this points total can be altered slightly for melee, as the melee points accumulation can be slightly more than any other, but that may not be the case for some, such as Black Ops 6. But anyways, point is, the amount of points you are getting per game in modern zombies is strictly dependent on one singular factor: how well you aim. And yes, that is a great dependency that should be taken into account. However, the problem with this is that if you are a relatively decent player, you are going to be getting the same exact amount of points nearly every single game, no matter what you do. Through the streamlining of points, you are essentially restricted on how many points you can earn for any given zombie kill, thus making every single game feel the exact same, because the only factor that actually plays into how many points you get from match to match is whether you melee a zombie or hit that headshot. Quite literally, the only way these points can differ is if you were to magically get a double points power up or a nuke, as these both can reward you with extra increments of points, but keep in mind that is quite possibly the only way one can change the amount of points they have at the beginning of any specific round. So with this in mind, with just the point system alone, every single game in this Modern Zombies point system feels like the exact same thing. I often find that the use of this point system specifically makes every single playthrough of the map feel extremely monotonous and less exciting as a result. This also creates yet another issue, however, as with the point system now reliant on kills, this makes every single weapon even on its maximum points potential, meaning that weapons that may not have been as good in previous games because of their lack of point efficiency are suddenly amazing, which is mainly seen with shotguns. I'm not sure if a lot of people realize this, but quite literally every single meta weapon within these modern systems have been a shotgun, whether it be the Howler in Cold War, the Maelstrom in Black Ops 6, the Akita in Black Ops 7, heck, even that weird shotgun from Vanguard, they have all been the meta. And I don't know about you guys, but despite the fact that I'm really glad shotguns are good, I am frankly tired of using the same gun over and over and over because of how much it dominates within this point system. One of the main reasons things used to be balanced, especially in Black Ops 3 when shotguns were buffed, was because the shotguns had the drop off of less points potential but were extremely good in general gameplay in terms of horde clear and damage, while SMGs were the opposite. But let's compare this to the average game of a more classic point system, which is essentially the same point system that was featured in World at War all the way through Black Ops 3. In the older point system, you have choice. It allows the experienced player to utilize methods like shooting the zombie a couple times for some extra points, and even advancing this with the purchase of an M14 or RK5 in the spawn room to ensure the maximum number of points. Plus, as the rounds advance, double points actually make so much more of a difference than they would in the modern zombie system, as with each bullet you are getting 20 points, essentially meaning that the player can build up a huge stockpile of points if used effectively to aid them in opening any given map. This can most clearly be seen with Mob of the Dead, as lying all around the map are double points power-ups that can be used to gain extra points if the player is experienced with the map enough. But the beauty of this system lies within the inconsistency of it all. The inconsistency that makes every single game feel slightly different because of how much a double points or shooting with a pistol can actually change the mode from round to round. Sometimes you find yourself in a points excess, and others you may see less, but at the end of the day, the early rounds of these zombies experiences were incredibly engaging and allowed the player to utilize their own skills to provide a slight advantage. But that's enough about the point system. The next thing I wanted to look at was the rarities, salvage, and the loadout system that exists within the modern systems. Rarities in the newer zombies formula allow the player to have another piece of power to work towards throughout the entire game, and one could argue this system adds a layer of complexity to the mode that people have wanted from zombies for a long time now. However, this system, while a decent idea in concept, only serves to make the game as unbelievably consistent as possible. For instance, when spawning into any given modern experience, the player starts with the weakest weapon possible at the lowest rarity, which is good, but the problem arises with the sudden appearance of loadouts. Loadouts allow the player to spawn in with quite literally whatever gun you want in a zombies experience, whether it be the PPSH in Cold War Zombies or the nail gun. It's all there for the player to utilize and have access to. So generally, if the player has the option to, they are more likely than not going to choose a gun that they would actually prefer to use rather than limiting themselves to a weapon they would rather trade out later in the game, and what this creates is yet another point of consistency. Since you are more encouraged to choose a weapon you actually want, the player is more likely than not going to stick with this weapon for the rest of the game, rendering a lot of what made this mode inconsistent and random completely obsolete. By strictly sticking to one weapon, you essentially remove the concept of wall weapons entirely, with only the mystery box remaining to a certain degree to achieve the ray gun or ray gun mark II, as they cannot be crafted through a quest. But even if you wanted to trade out your starting weapon, what is even the point? With the new pack-a-punch system that is implemented in these games, you have to spend a grand total of 50,000 points on one singular weapon to get it to the maximum damage possible, and with the modern point system now, it is quite literally impossible to even get points if you try to use a weaker weapon. Conversely, in the older games, it was a genuine strategy to use weaker weapons to build up points to get you back on your feet if you were in a pinch. But if you fall behind in this game, there is quite literally no getting back. Sticking with your loadout weapon is even more incentivized with the addition of ammo crates to the game that essentially just gives you infinite ammo without having to worry about trading a weapon out or anything at all, allowing the player to stick to their comfort zone with the weapon they chose. But with all this consistency, there has to be some variance with the salvage system system to change up the mode, right? Well, not really. While salvage does drop at a consistent rate, which is a good thing, the amount of salvage you get generally tends to be the same in every single game that you play eventually. Now yes, there are ways to increase drop rates for salvage, and the most tragic and annoying of them all to me personally is the obligation to equip a suppressor on every single one of your weapons loading into the game. Your consistency alarm should have gone off there, because in order to achieve the maximum number of salvage in any given situation, the only thing you can possibly do to increase the amount you get is to equip a suppressor on all your weapons, which I just find extremely monotonous and boring after just a couple of games. The only game in this series of modern zombies that has attempted to make a change to controlling the salvage drop rates naturally is Black Ops 7, which is said to have nerfed the amount of salvage that drops to encourage the use of the mystery box and wall weapons. But let's look at a sample game of a more classic experience. There is absolutely no rarities or salvage whatsoever to deter you from using other weapons, and you can often find yourself hitting the mystery box for newer weapons to try out because you don't have the idea of 50,000 points in the back of your head the whole time. The price of Pack-a-Punch is a singular 5,000 points, allowing you to test and play around with multiple weapons, whether it be from the wall on a specific map like Mob of the Dead or the mystery box, without having to worry about being underpowered because you won't be able to gain points without it. And even if you were underpowered, that classic point system can allow you to run around with some zombies and just shoot into a horde to get those points right back to you once again, never seeing you behind in the slightest. So, yet again, with the loadouts, rarities, and salvage, we have found yet another point of consistency, and there has quite literally not been a single point of inconsistency so far. But I wanted to go back and touch on the price points of a lot of the systems within these games, and the two main ones were the Pack-a-Punch like we just mentioned, but more importantly, the perks. The perks in these newer experiences do not have a set price like they used to. Rather, these are perks that start at the small price of 2,500 points but gradually increase in increments of 500 for every new purchase. Once again, combined with the newer modern system, this is just artificial difficulty put into the game to control how many perks you have at a given time, as depending on what you allocate your points to, it quite literally only varies between 3 or 4 things: doors, perks, Pack-a-Punch, and ammo. That is quite literally it. And combined with these Pack-a-Punch prices, you literally cannot be spending your money on literally anything else, forcing you to stick to the same weapon and same perks just so that you can afford Pack-a-Punch in these games. But the perks get even more tarnished with the new Wonder Fizz system, a vending machine that allows you to dispense whatever beverage you want at a click of a button. And once again, say it with me, this is just consistency. The perks that once had such an identity to them with their own machines and own price now often only get bought at the Wonder Fizz, which I personally just find devastating. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. Black Ops 6 had a great way of doing this, as it would not spawn the Wonder Fizz until round 25, but it seems like Black Ops 7 has regressed in this particular field, as it spawns the Wonder Fizz after you have bought only 4 perks, so I don't really know what they're doing. The perk system additionally allows you to have every perk in the game, and this is actually where I do not mind the modern system, because I found that the 4 perk limit was a little restrictive. But yet again, I absolutely love the way Infinite Warfare did its perk system, as it allows you to choose 3 to 4 essential perks and leave 1 or 2 for your style of play. But that's besides the point. Modern Zombies gets a point for that, so I'll hand it to them. Now, the armor system is one of the biggest things people often talk about when discussing the modern zombie systems, and believe it or not, I am also one of the haters of this system, but it is not exactly for the reason you might be thinking. Everything in these modern systems was added for a reason, whether it be the rarities to collaborate with the loadout system or the point system to collaborate with the perks, and this system is no different, except it works with a little thing known as damage scaling. Essentially, this means that as the rounds progress, zombies not only get tougher to kill, but they additionally hit harder themselves, meaning that Jug isn't the only thing that will save you, requiring the armor system. I absolutely despise the damage scaling system. Zombies doing more damage as the rounds progress just makes absolutely no sense to me. They add a system that increases the damage a zombie does and introduces a mechanic that nobody really asked for with armor. Like I said, I don't really mind the armor system, especially the way Cold War handled it, but it bothers me that the one singular inconsistency within this game is one that provides an annoyance to the player rather than a genuine challenge, and bleeds into the newly established armor to add yet another annoyance to the game that wasn't required in older experiences. But the last last thing I wanted to touch on in this video today was the field upgrade system, and I saved this one for last because I actually don't really mind it all that much. I find all of the field upgrades mainly to be relatively fun and useful to use in my games. They really only provide more fun and allow bad players like myself to have a way out of sticky situations. However, the thing that I absolutely hate about this is that it replaced the quests we used to have for specialist abilities like the Skull of Nansapwe or the Gauntlet of Siegfried. These specialist abilities added so much more identity to each and every map, and with the field upgrades being the same across every game and every match, I just find it to be a little boring sometimes. With all that being said though, I do not like the modern zombies formula, and it isn't because I hate the way it is designed necessarily, but rather because of how much it has been repeated over and over. There is only so much variance you can do to one specific experience with these systems, and by implementing the same exact formula for the past 5 years now, I am frankly sick and tired of it. I hate having to load into a game, stick to one singular weapon, use salvage to upgrade my rarity, pack a punch every once in a blue moon, get the same perks. It literally drives me insane. And for me personally, it is literally just so unfortunate because half of these maps that they have been releasing are literally stellar experiences. Citadel is easily a top 15 or maybe even a top 10 map for me from a content perspective, and Ashes of the Damned is one of the best maps we have ever gotten. So all in all, the curse of consistency is developed, as with the gain of this consistency, we lose the randomness that every map used to have, because no matter what map they release that has all this new content, ultimately they will all feel the exact same because of how little variance there is within the systems. Anyways, thank you all for watching. First of all, this topic is extremely overdone, and I personally just wanted to give my 2 cents on it because of how much I have grown to dislike these modern mechanics over the years. Please do not get it twisted. I enjoy the modern zombies experience. In fact, just a couple videos ago, I was just saying how much I loved Ashes of the Damned and Black Ops 7. And trust me, the maps I find are designed extremely well. I just wish the systems would be better. Now, let me just say this. Modern zombies has its place. I personally believe that for what it is a fun take on the zombies mode. However, the consistency it provides is just too much to be repeated for more than 5 years now, and I am advocating for a change. It doesn't have to just be the older zombie system entirely, but something just different. And also, I'm sorry if I went off track or it sounded like a rant, because truthfully, as I am writing down these points, I'm kind of just listing off a bunch of gripes, so if it doesn't flow well, then I apologize. But with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.